So today we're going to talk about with Alec Garland. He said he's done directing. He's going to strictly, after this film, stick with writing. We're going to talk about a little bit about that, but also talk about other stuff that is going on. This is kind of a late review for us, so we kind of already are digesting what a lot of people have already said about this one.
Yeah, stressful, tension-filled film, and maybe that's why he's not doing it again. Although I will say my BS meter was going off when he said he wasn't directing anymore. But we are going to be talking about a bunch of conflicting sides today as we talk Civil War.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for supporting the show, and thank you for watching. Another way you can support the show is join the Patreon. We for low as $1 tier and an opportunity to tell us what movies we can review for future episodes. With, of course, a shout-out to you. Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Do we do a mid-year report?
We haven't yet.
Okay,
I think it's coming.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be on. This movie will be probably on our top 10 by the mid-year, our midterms report. So let's talk about what's going on with Civil War. Let me guess, it's a war.
So there's some war between the civilians. Some time in the future, the United States is deep into the Second American Civil War as multiple state factions plot to take control from the dictatorial president, currently serving his third term. War photographer Lee Smith and her colleague Joel have teamed with a veteran reporter and another young photographer to travel to D.C. and interview the president before he's forcibly removed from office.
So I just finished watching this yesterday, and as I was watching, and I hope maybe you guys got it too, I thought the first part of it was enduring. That's the one word that popped out of my brain. You endure so much, all the turmoil, not just get involved and participate, but can you just endure? And I got that very much on Kristen Dunst's face throughout this whole beginning, this part of this movie. Yeah. And then it slowly evolved into stupidity. I think the core of it all, kind of it, is stupidity on everybody participating.
Yeah, it's almost like, there's a lot of times where we have voyeurism directors that kind of like put the audience's face into voyeurism and says, do you really want to see? Do you really want to see? And this is kind of the same thing, but through the landscape of people that kind of claim like as if a civil war would be a good thing. I think Alex Garland is kind of taking them and rubbing their nose in it a little bit. And I had that experience, if you guys followed me for any amount of time, I tweeted this out. I've talked to a number of people where I just said, I was almost visibly sick leaving the theater after this movie because my stomach was in knots from watching it. It was so tense. It was very hard intense, to watch. I remember I was gripping the seat in much the same way that I haven't in a while. And I think it's not going to be an experience for everybody.
No, where much like his movie Annihilation, that is kind of like we're anticipating what is happening. We don't have this intensity as much as we know that this is not going to turn out good for anybody involved. I kind of had that idea from beginning to end. This is not going to be the fulfilling journey.
Yeah.
Right. I got that right away, that the intensity of this. And not to mention, I'm not going to say the stupidity. I'm not saying it's stupid writing. I'm saying the characters are doing things where you're just screaming like, what the hell are you doing? Throughout the whole, what are you doing?
Right. Well, they really make some, specifically the younger photographer played by Kaylee Spaney makes some dumb calls that I wouldn't have made in the situation. But I think I'm also not a person who's endured living within a civil war going on in my home for so long that I'm looking for any amount of thrill. Like specifically the sequence where they're hopping between cars. I wanted to yell at the screen.
Right.
I was surrounded by people that hated that.
I got a strong reaction out of that. Now a lot of people say that was stupid. But understand, I think he intentionally put that in there so you get that reaction like you're not really focusing, you're just doing this. Yeah, I think the whole point of the car hopping thing, the stunt, because it took a long time, there's good stunts in there. But the whole point of it is they're not serious about it. They're not taking this serious.
They become numb to the idea because they've been doing it for. That's the funny thing is there was a lot. It
reminds me of the story of the guy who parachuted so many times. That he was going to film it and he jumped without his parachute. He just become numb to the experience that you skip the protocols, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is throughout Kirsten Dunst's performance. And I've seen some criticism online for her performance in that it is very one note to some people. But I think the point of it is that she is numb. She is dulled to what she's seen until she has this kind of re-energization from a person who is young getting into the field.
I think I think they captured her character perfectly. This is somebody that's gone other places to see this. Warn him about him. She tells him in the movie, it's not going to happen here. And it starts happening here, and she's almost like, you dumb idiots.
Yeah.
But then she's a dumb idiot for bringing all these people that she knows that's going to get them in the end
Yeah.
So that's why I say I think Alex crafted a wonderful story where you talk about it, and it's also kind of a litmus test. You're bringing your own perceptions of things into it.
Yeah, the movie is shockingly non-political.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shockingly political against the idea of anyone trying to take down a democracy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's interesting is you'll see tweets from people that are like, well, this movie's against people on the left. This movie's against people on the right. And I said, well, no, that's because you're on the left or the right, and you're wanting to be the victim of this whole thing when it's really a breakdown of two sides or multiple sides that would lead to this. And that's why I kind of like that there's the idea that Texas and California unioned together because those are, a heavy red state and a heavy blue state. The purpose of that is not to make the film political, but to literally shine the light on everyone.
Right. And it's an implausible scenario for you to bring your own, and like I said, it's a litmus test to bring your own, what would you perceive this action to be?
Yeah.
Right. Is a necessity? Is it eventually going to happen? And there's going to be people that will just turn off. They're just going to ignore it.
Yeah. Or the little town that they go through where it's like, well, that's not happening here.
Right. They're divorcing themselves, and that's a word I'm trying to avoid, but I see a lot of people divorcing themselves to the experience of what's happening. Oh, I'm just here on the press. I'm just taking the pictures. You're actually participating.
Yeah.
Whether you want to say it or not, you were actually there.
Well, it goes back to that common discussion about the documentary, where the very nature of having a documentarian on set or in the wild changes the reality of the situation. Things react because there's a person there with a camera. So you do lose that sense of reality. And I think that's, again, goes back to what they're not feeling in the situation. This is their job. This is their quest. They're trying to get an interview with the president before he is forcibly removed from office, a.k.a. violently removed from office.
And everybody kind of anticipating that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. But also, I know are you a participant, or you're using that camera as an excuse to say, I am not I'm not involved. I'm just here to document. I'm neutral on this. I'm just trying to let you interpret it. Is that kind of a cop-out? It's almost like Garland's saying that's kind of a cop-out as well.
Well, I feel like, knowing, of course, his grandfather was a war photographer. His father worked in, political commentary. And so he's kind of, I think, viewing through the lens of these characters what it means to be a person risking your life to get the story out, too. Because at the same time, they're not really taking a side in the whole thing, but they're doing the one thing that the news cycle at the time is not doing, which is they are providing some semblance of the truth.
Yeah.
And
always, I like the craft of Kirsten Dunst seeing too much of herself in this young person and almost shying away from it, but knows that this is probably, the transition is going to happen.
Yeah.
She's taking over my position.
Yeah, if there's one fault to the film, I do think that it plays along some very simplistic mentor-mentee
very simple for how complex it is.
Yeah. This is a case where the mythology and the world building, what's going on around them, is so interesting and so enticing and so intense that you almost you forgive some of its more paint by numbers story elements.
But visually, it projects this as, even though it's dastardly awful, that there's some very sublime, surreal poetry emotion happening.
Yeah.
There's some great sceneries, even though the burning forest is, or the buildings are on fire and stuff like that.
Or the Christmas land that they go through, which I found an interesting story about. They came across it had been abandoned by someone, and they decided to shoot there because Alex Garland got the idea that, something's wrong in America when they haven't taken the Christmas lights down yet. Yeah. And I thought that's a pretty interesting little motif, movement.
But it's like a children's little thing, you put on
children's play toys. Yeah. And we get a nice little appearance from Carl Glusman, who does a lot of kind of character acting as well in that scene. So
yeah, and it's every character is flawed for their own ambitions, which is I generally appreciate for the writing, and they do a lot of stupid things. They think that just because they're press is just going to get all access pass and everybody's going to forgive them, where you want to arm yourself a little bit, thinking that you're just going to get all access and just everybody's going to treat you nice. Yeah. I think that was kind of a nice little naivete, but also I like the ending to this, that you're not going to get this flower, this Roman dictator speech at the end.
Oh man, that ending scene, I was taken aback and then realized how absolutely perfect the idea would be to end with those final moments as it does. It's a peculiar movie because I don't know that we've tackled war photographers in many films
No,
where
not
we
like
really
Welcome
get a chance
to Sarajevo and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so it's nice that even beyond the Civil War kind of motif that they're going with here, it's an interesting examination of those people who do go out into the wild in order to capture the truth or capture news to what extent they actually get.
Yeah. Alex Garland is definitely working in unforgettable, not memorable. I will never forget I saw this movie.
Yeah, it's a movie
For
that
all its flaws and everything.
Like, having seen it twice now, I will be seeing it again, but I think I need more time than I did the first and second time I saw it.
And I think your perception of it changes after a second viewing.
Yeah, the second time I watched it, my stomach wasn't turning in that kind of same way. I didn't feel that overall sickness because I knew what I was seeing. I knew what I was subjecting myself to again.
Yeah.
But it is a movie that you can pause at some of those other moments. I think my favorite moment in the movie actually is a moment of complete silence, and it's Wagner Moore, the actor who plays Joel, who you might recognize. He played the villain in Narcos. He has a moment after this incredibly tense face-off with Jesse Plemons' characters where it's a silent moment, the tanks are rolling by behind him, and he's just screaming into the void. He's just
no
like,
sound
letting himself just completely lose it because he's been through something that has kind of reawakened him to the danger of what they're doing. Because he's talking the whole movie up until that point about how fantastic it is to be in this danger. It's exciting.
I know, and everyone's going to talk about the Jesse Plemons pit stop, and they should.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a mark.
Especially knowing that he came on like weeks before filming because the other actor had to drop out.
And I like that he's wearing red sunglasses, like a metaphor that all he sees is just red.
Yeah.
He's just intense.
Yeah.
But the big thing for me is I like when they're camping out at night and they're watching the fireworks at a distance. And it looks kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
You know that all the devastation's happening, and they're kind of jealous that they're not there.
Yeah.
Right.
It reminds me consistently of during those softer moments when you can kind of pull yourself out of the intensity for a little bit, and you remind yourself you're almost looking at something you're not supposed to see. You know, you're staring through a peephole at another reality that hopefully is as far away from us as possible. And yet it's there. It's reminding us every moment that it's on screen. It's truly intelligent visual filmmaking. And one other thing I wanted to point out, I usually hate this in movies, but they do a lot of camera pictures. You know, paused moments.
They did so many that reminds me of Judy Garland's Star is Born. They did a lot of the photography montages.
Yeah, and normally I completely hate that. But this is a case where it actually has a narrative purpose to the story. It's not overly used. It's used a lot, but it's not overly used where it kind of overtakes the narrative. I was surprised how often the found footage aesthetic, the documentary style aesthetic, and the picture aesthetic worked as well as it did.
Yeah, and I think, that was you have to do it the right amount of time, not too much, not enough.
Yeah, I feel like one more, shutter click might have been like, no, that's it. We've done it now.
Right, yeah. So, definitely, if I have to probably be on my top 10 at the mid-year report that we probably issue out.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying since I saw it in April that this is, if Dune Part 2 wasn't out, we would be talking about my favorite movie of the year because it just had that effect on me. That I can't, like you said, unforgettable. You can't remove yourself, excise yourself from what you've seen. And I do think that that's one strength that hopefully enough people will actually get to see the film. I know it's underperforming right now, but when it hits streaming, A24 will probably have it over on Hulu, I imagine. I would check it out.
Yeah, interesting. A lot of content there for somebody and I saw somebody tweet that it's a movie that has nothing to say. You didn't watch the right movie.
I think it doesn't have anything like one-sided to say.
Right.
I think it is literally a movie that everyone should see. Unfortunately, it's not a movie that's pleasant.
Right. Unforgettable. So, what do you think of our take of Civil War?
Yeah, let us know down in the comment section below. And you know what? Alex Garland has directed 3 other films we haven't talked about on our show.
I'm sure everybody in the world has an opinion about an Alex Garland movie.
Men just came out a couple years ago, so absolutely everybody has an
Right,
opinion on an Alex Garland movie. But let us know your opinion on this one, and then tell us which of his other films, either written or directed, you'd like us to discuss on a future episode.
Right.
I kind of want to cover his Sunshine, his screenplay for Sunshine. That's a delightful little time. But let us know down in the comment section your thoughts, and thank you for joining us. You can check out all my film reviews over at goldfilmreviews.com.
You can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts, and go shoot it.
Yeah, but not us.